Only you can prevent forest fires. That was a very popular ad back when I was a kid for Smokey the Bear, saying that only we can prevent forest fires. One day I felt God speak to my heart in a similar fashion, saying, only you can prevent yourself from being an idiot. Now, obviously, God doesn't really call us names like that, but that was, the general gist that I was going to mess up, and God was saying, there's something better for you. So to kind of paint the picture for you, things hadn't worked out the way that I thought they were going to. I'm sitting out on the front steps of the front porch of my house and just thinking about what I'm going to do. And I felt like God spoke to my heart to write the book that He had placed in me to write. And I was like, God, I have no business writing this book. There's a ton of other people who are much more qualified and much more consistent than your servant has been. And I honestly feel like, God, you should have somebody else do it. And I felt God speak to my heart again and say, yes, somebody else could write the book, but it wouldn't be exactly the same, would it? Because you and I, each of us, we are each unique creations. And there would be certain nuances that are going to come out through what God's put into me that would not come out in another vessel. Now, the truth is, God's work will not be stopped if a person doesn't do what they believe and what God has called them. Much more important than us believing it is if God's called that person to do it. But God will accomplish His purpose, but it wouldn't be exactly the same. And so I felt that stir in my heart to go ahead and try to put the book together that I felt like God had put in my heart. I have been studying for over 40 years about the end of the age and the second coming of Christ, and especially the nuances between how many people were looking for the coming of the Messiah during Jesus' lifetime and how they got that totally wrong. And when he showed up, 90, 90 plus percent of the people who were there at the time of his coming did not recognize him for what he was, even though a huge portion of them were poring over the scriptures and poring over this is what the Messiah is going to be like. Totally got it wrong. God had a totally different box than what everybody anticipated, even though everybody was looking at the same book. And so that's been part of my heart as I've been poring over all of these different books about the end of the age. I have studied, like I said, for over 40 years, and I have read pretty much everything there is on the topic that I can find and stayed in reading and going over things even when I vehemently disagreed with the author because I wanted to understand the process of how they got from point A to point B. How did they come to that understanding scripturally? And so, like I said, I'd been preparing and just researching this every time I turned around. Um, and I felt like, God, there's not an awful lot going on in my life. I'm honestly not very worthy to be doing anything. And I felt like God spoke to me something that has never left me. I felt God say to me, Andrew, you are just as worthy today as you were the first day that I called you. And that is to say that each and every one of us, we have no worthiness of our own. What we might be able to accomplish by God's grace isn't because of our worthiness, it's because of His. And I felt like God said, you are just as worthy to do what I'm asking you to do today, even though you've messed up, you've made some detours, as you were the first day that I called you. And I feel like that's a word not just for me, but for anybody else who's out there who's struggling because you've missed the path, you've gone on detours, you've fallen into some pits. I want you to realize that what God spoke to me, He's speaking also to you. Samson, at the end of his life, ended up killing more of Israel's enemies, which was part of his purpose in God raising him up for the day and the age that he was born into. So, right at the end, even though he had messed up, God used him mightily as he was going out the door. And so, that is my exhortation to myself and to everybody else. So I have been pouring through these things for, like I said, over 40 years, just studying everything I can get my hands on. It's my passion. It's the thing that really drives me. And I felt like God's given me some things. I had a recent breakthrough in the Gog-Magog war, some new insight that I can honestly tell you that I have not seen anywhere else. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but I am saying that as far as I know, it is unique to me and unique to what I feel like God showed me. And everybody that I've shown this insight to in the Gog Magog war, they're like, Andrew, God is definitely speaking to you. And so I'm just saying all that to say this. Back when I was on the steps of my house, and I was saying, God, I'm not worthy. And God was like, you're just as worthy today as you were the first day that I called you, which is to say, you have no worthiness of your own. I would like to say that to you. I would like to put out that battle cry that whatever time is left, give it to God, even if you have fallen on your face many times. I have been much more of a Peter than I have been a Joseph or a Daniel. I fully recognize that. But God, who is rich in mercy, because of the great love with which He has called us, has chosen you, and He's chosen me. And He has called, knowing beforehand how many times we would fail, and still said your name, and He said mine. So my call to action to you today is, wherever you are in life, however many times you've messed up, if you feel that tug on your heart for God to say, rise up one more time, rise up one more time. In the name of Jesus, blessings to you. Bye.